You will literally be dying from overwork. Literally, death itself. You will be renting a girlfriend. Not in that way, but just to show her off to your friends and family. You will not leave your home due to extreme social withdrawal and insecurity. You will feel like you are offending people with your appearance and behavior. What country is this? This is Japan. You think you know Japan. To you, it's a land of the future, anime, robots, and endless politeness. A country where trains are never a second late and the streets are spotless. But behind this perfect facade hides a silent epidemic. This is a country where the word karoshi exists, death from overwork, where millions of people don't leave their rooms for years, becoming hikikomori, and where politeness is not an act of kindness, but armor hiding a cry for help. Meet the people whose lives we will live through today. Kenji was born in the Minato district, Tokyo's wealthiest neighborhood. But his childhood ended the very moment he started walking. Aiko was born in old municipal housing on the outskirts of Osaka, in a depressed region. She is being raised by a single mother. Japan has the highest poverty rate among single-parent families in developed countries. Today, we will tear the mask off the Japanese ideal. We will travel the path from exams at 3 years old to a lonely death in a concrete box. Are you ready to see the real Japan they don't show you in anime? Kenji was born into a sterile world. His parents are the elite who do not forgive mistakes. In Japan, there is a cult of education mothers, Kyoiku Mama. For Kenji's mother, his birth is the launch of a business project. At just 3 years old, Kenji doesn't play in a sandbox. He attends O-juken, special preparatory courses for admission to an elite kindergarten. For this, Kenji must pass an exam at age 3. His parents spend $10,000 a month on this absurdity. Kenji doesn't know how to play football, but he knows how to bow perfectly and knows the basics of etiquette. Just think about it. A 3-year-old child who can barely talk is dressed in a black suit and forced to undergo an interview on which the family's honor depends. If he fails, his mother will consider it her personal disgrace. Kenji grows up feeling that his parents' love must be earned through grades. From the cradle, Kenji is taught to kill the child within himself to become a perfect part of the Japanese machine. He lives by the motto, "Be like everyone else, but better than everyone." Aiko is a child of hidden poverty. Her mother works 2 jobs, but there is still never enough money. Japan ranks among the highest of developed countries in terms of poverty in single-parent families. Every 7th child here is malnourished. Do you know what's most haunting about Japanese poverty? It looks like prosperity. Aiko is always neat and wears a clean uniform because in Japan, being poor is shameful. But behind this cleanliness lies emptiness. Aiko is an invisible child. She loves school for one reason only, kyushoku, the free school lunch. Often, it's the only hot meal she sees all day. While Kenji suffers from overload in private schools, Aiko learns to ignore the growling in her stomach and smile politely. In Japan, they say, the nail that sticks out will be hammered down. Kenji is hammered from above to stay level with the elite. Aiko is simply pressed into the ground so she doesn't disturb the general view. In Japan, the teenage years are called the second birth, but for Kenji and Aiko, it's more like a long jump without a parachute. Kenji is 15. His life is turned into a mathematical equation. There is a saying in Japan, 4 hours of sleep, you pass. 5 hours, you fail. This refers to the entrance exams for the University of Tokyo, Todai. After regular school, Kenji doesn't go home. He goes to Juku, a private evening cram school. He sits there until midnight, memorizing formulas. In my opinion, this is legalized torture. Kenji lives in a state of constant cortisol shock. He has no friends. Everyone is competing with one another. His only goal is not to disgrace his family. If he gets a B instead of an A, what awaits him at home is not a shout, but icy silence. And in Japan, silence hits harder than any blow. Kenji begins to think about becoming a hikikomori, simply locking himself in his room and never coming out. Aiko doesn't go to Juku. Her mother has no money for it. Her school begins after classes at the register of a konbini, convenience store. About 20% of Japanese students from poor families are forced to work, baito, to pay for their lunches or school uniforms. But the scariest thing for Aiko is ijime, bullying. In a Japanese school, you cannot be different. If you don't have a trendy keychain, or if you can't go to Disneyland with the class because you don't have $100, you become a target. Aiko is bullied because she smells like poverty. It is a subtle psychological torment. They simply ignore her as if she were transparent. For a Japanese person, ignoring is a civil death. Kenji falls asleep over his textbook and dreams he is falling from the roof of a skyscraper. Aiko falls asleep at the register and dreams she has new sneakers that no one laughs at. The system is built so that Kenji has no time to feel, and Aiko is forbidden to complain. Both are victims of the Japanese gambaru, the culture of extreme endurance. Endure until you break, and when you break, do it quietly so as not to disturb those around you. The exam is far from the finale. It's just a warm-up before the main ritual of initiation into Japanese society. Kenji got into a prestigious university. You'd think, relax. But in his third year, shukatsu begins, the process of job hunting and employment. Kenji buys a recruit suit, the cheap black jacket that everyone wears. He goes to setsumekai, company presentations, where hundreds of students bow simultaneously on command. His task is to prove he isn't a sticking nail, but a perfect gear. It looks like a parade of robots. Kenji goes through 50 interviews a month. In each one, they don't ask about his talents, but about whether he is ready to sacrifice himself for the company. Do you know Kenji's biggest fear? Getting a naite offer later than others. In Japan, if you haven't found a job before graduating, you are spoiled goods. Kenji feels his personality finally dissolving into that black suit. Aiko couldn't afford an elite university. After college, she ends up in what are called buraku kigyo, or black corporations. These are companies that hire young people for low positions, promising a career, but in reality, they squeeze them dry. Aiko works in an office or service sector for 12 hours. She isn't paid for overtime, zange, because it's considered a show of loyalty. It is modern slavery with a polite smile. Aiko is afraid to quit because in Japan, jumping from place to place in your resume is the mark of a loser. She endures harassment from her boss and humiliation because she was taught to endure is a virtue. Aiko is the perfect victim for the system because she doesn't have Kenji's wealthy parents to back her up. Kenji puts on his tie, feeling it tighten around his neck like a noose. Aiko stands on the subway platform after a 14-hour shift, looking at the approaching train, and for a second, just for a single second, she wants to step forward. At this moment, Kenji's wealth and Aiko's poverty are equalized. The system devours both. Kenji is like elite fuel. Aiko is like cheap coal. But the furnace they burn in is the same. At 30, our heroes' lives should have flourished. But in Japan, maturity is not about self-realization. On the contrary, it's about burnout. Kenji is now a salaryman, an office worker. His life belongs to the company. In Japan, there is a term, karoshi, death from overwork. It is an official diagnosis. Kenji works 80 hours of overtime per week. After work, he is obligated to go to a bar with his boss, nomikai, because a refusal is a betrayal of the collective. Do you know what's most horrific? Kenji cannot go home before his boss, even if all the work is done. He simulates activity, sitting at his desk until midnight. He has money, but he has no time to spend it. His relationships with women end before they even begin. He is simply too tired to feel. He turns into a transparent person who exists only as a function in an Excel spreadsheet. Aiko realizes that with her salary at a black corporation, it's impossible to build a family. In Japan, marriage for a woman is often the only way to survive. But men like Kenji are too busy with work. Because of total loneliness, the human rental industry is booming in Japan. You can rent a friend, a husband, or even an entire family for an evening. This is the pinnacle of human alienation. Aiko works so much that she has no social skills left. Sometimes she spends her last money to go to a host club, where a young guy will compliment her and mimic interest for money. She buys a surrogate of love because real intimacy requires time, which Japan doesn't have for her. She is part of the lost generation that decided never to have children because they don't want to pass on this relay of pain. Kenji receives a bonus for overtime, but he has no one to tell about it. Aiko turns off the light in her tiny box apartment, feeling the walls closing in. In this system, love is an unaffordable luxury. Family is a career risk, and children are like a financial catastrophe. Japan is aging and dying in silence because its citizens have forgotten how to be anything other than workers. The finale of the Japanese dream is silence. In a country where no one wanted to cause problems for those around them, people simply start to disappear. Kenji retired. As a former employee of a major corporation, he receives a two-tier pension, the basic, Kokumi Nenkin, and the employee's pension insurance, Kosei Nenkin, tied to his high salary. Approximately 200,000 to 250,000 yen, $1,300 to $1,600 per month. He is no longer a salaryman, no longer an important part of the corporation. Now, he is no one. In Japan, there is a term, Kodokushi, lonely death. Every year, about 30,000 people die in their apartments and are found only weeks later. This is the finale for a man who lived his whole life for the company. Kenji has no family. His colleagues forgot him the day after his retirement party. He followed all the rules perfectly, never stuck out, and never complained. And now he sits in his apartment in Minato, surrounded by expensive things he has no one to leave to. His only connection to the world is the courier bringing groceries. Kenji dies in a chair in front of the TV, and the only thing that reveals his passing is the smell that the neighbors will complain about. Aiko has no savings like Kenji. In Japan, elderly women are the most vulnerable category. Aiko worked all her life at baito, part-time jobs, or in black companies that often didn't pay into the insurance fund. She can only count on the basic national pension, about 65,000 yen, $430 per month. It is impossible to survive on this money in Japan. Rent for a tiny room eats up 80% of this amount. That is why we see Aiko at a parking lot at age 80. For Aiko, it's a way not to starve to death. Do you know what shocks me? In Japan, the elderly sometimes commit minor crimes, stealing a loaf of bread in a store, just to go to prison. There, they have free food, medicine, and most importantly, company. For Aiko, prison seems more humane than her empty apartment. She works until 80, bowing to cars in the parking lot under the rain, until her heart simply stops. She dies as quietly as she lived. Invisible in the beginning, invisible at the end. Two paths, one system, one outcome. Kenji, who won, and Aiko, who lost, meet at the same point, in total isolation from the world they built with their own hands. Japan is a great country, but it is built on the bones of those who agreed to be a function rather than a human being. Kenji and Aiko were not bad people. They were just too good at being Japanese. The story of Kenji and Aiko isn't just a drama about two people. It is a mirror that modern Japan is afraid to look into. Do you know what's most paradoxical? We admire this country. We love their service, their politeness, and their ability to bring everything to perfection. But we never ask ourselves, what does the person who bowed to me so perfectly actually feel? Japan built a perfect mechanism, but in this mechanism, Kenji and Aiko were simply fuel. One was elite, the other cheap. But the system burned both with equal indifference. Kenji gave his life for status, which ultimately left him in an empty apartment. Aiko gave her life for survival, which ultimately led her to death on the asphalt under the rain. Japan taught the world discipline, but it seems it forgot to teach its children simple human happiness. Here, being a good citizen is more important than being a living human being. And this is the greatest tragedy of the land of the rising sun. And now I want to ask you, what is scarier, to live Kenji's life, in a golden cage, suffocating from expectations but in total wealth, or Aiko's life, struggling for every yen, but free from family duty and honor? Or maybe this perfect world isn't even worth being born into. Write in the comments whose fate made you shudder more. And remember, sometimes the nail that sticks out is the only one truly living.